Hello, I'm Bevy Smith, and I'm here with Soledad OBrien, and we are going to disrupt and dismantle the most incarcerated zip code in America. Hello, Soledad OBrien.
Nice to see you, Bevy.
Always good to see you, my love. So you went to the most incarcerated zip code in America, which happens to be 37208. Now, when I did a little research on this, it used to be a zip code that was all about Black excellence. So how do we go from the pinnacle of Black excellence to the most incarcerated zip code in America?
Nashville itself is booming. You cannot drive through Nashville and not see cranes everywhere on the skyline. But when it comes to that part of the community, it's actually been quite ignored. So while in the past there are some remarkable stories about Black excellence, what's happening right there now are schools that are actually really struggling. And local people are trying to figure out, how do you solve some of these problems?
Also, too, those children have been demonized. I was watching a news report and they were talking about 59 elementary school children were arrested in 1 year. So we clearly have a school to prison pipeline going on.
We wanted to look at the school to prison pipeline, right? What exactly happens? And in a way, it's that classic, like, if you have a hammer, everything you see is a nail.
Right.
If you have police officers within your school, a school fight becomes assault one, right? So suddenly any sort of altercation at school kind of funnels its way into prison. And I think a lot of parents feel like that's hugely problematic.
Well, we see that time and again. Our children are looked upon as adults. You might even have teachers that feel like they're afraid of you, and so they don't even want to deal with you. They simply call in a security guard or a police officer that works in the school, and they rehab it.
Now remember, if you call a police officer and they have to deal with a child who's having a meltdown for whatever reason, right, suddenly they're handcuffing a 6-year-old.
Yes.
I mean, it's hard to wrap your head, and I have 4 kids, so I have seen some bad behavior among 6-year-olds, but to some degree, it's a lack of being able to come up with a solution that does better for the kids, to think differently about how we should deal with problems in the school.
But there are people in the community that are really very hands-on. So what did you find as far as the community members felt? Did you find that they felt afraid in their own community, or did they feel like, this is my neighborhood, I love it, I'm going to fight for it?
I think most people feel like this is their neighborhood, they love it, and they're going to fight for it, but they'd like to see investment. They fully understand that crime is correlated to, well, if you're dropping out of school, if you're suspended, if you're expelled from school, what are you going to do, right? Those things are not unrelated. And so I think solving the issue in a community, how do you make a community as a whole safe, is about all those things. Education, something to do, and making sure that kids don't have to rely on good luck in order to get ahead, that they can rely on good schooling and safe neighborhoods.
Yeah. That brings us to something that so many parents have had to do. They have to have the talk.
Yeah. All these things, I think if you're a Black kid, you've heard, I think it's about society deciding that we think Black children are valuable. I mean, it sounds so cheesy, but it's not until you really start valuing every kid like they're your own kid, and fully understand that any child, any 6-year-old who has handcuffs put on them is an indication that there is a huge problem that needs to be solved.
Indeed. Let's talk about 1 million connected devices now. This is more crucial than ever before because so many children are being homeschooled virtually. So
there was a picture in the newspaper of 2 little kids in front of a
yes, I saw that in front of a fast food
joint,
restaurant.
right? And they're sitting on the ground in the parking lot because that's where they can get a Wi-Fi signal.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's one of the reasons that I've always admired those people who chip away at these problems that seem intractable.
Yes.
Right? Like the school to prison pipeline is a big problem.
Yeah.
And the fact that there are people who get up every morning and run
Fight
at
the
that
fight,
problem, right?
yeah.
I mean, they're amazing.
Yeah, so let's hope that, and maybe in 5 years' time, we won't have to say that 37208 is the most incarcerated zip code in America. Maybe we can say North Nashville is a symbol of hope and promise in America.
There are lots of people in North Nashville who would say that right now, the symbol of promise and hope. Learn more about how P&G is stepping up to make lasting systemic changes to positively impact our communities and how you can help.